All Hail Biafra! This is Biafra Liberation Army Network coming to you again. Please like, share, and comment.
But for now, I want to quickly bring our attention to the reaction of the BBAT administration and the zoo. Yes, the Jagaban, and the reaction of the people in the zoo to the conviction of our able and highly respected, indefatigable Simon Ekpa. Yes, let's get straight to it, ladies and gentlemen. Let's hit the nail on the head. Yes, the Bola Tinubu administration welcomed, quote, the landmark judgment, quote, of the Pejat Hame District Court in Finland, which sentenced Simon Ekpa, a pro-Biafra agitator, to 6 years imprisonment for terrorism offenses. Yeah. The federal government has held a 6-year prison sentence handed to pro-Biafra agitator Simon Ekpa in Finland as a milestone in Nigeria's fight against terrorism. The Pajat Hamed District Court found Ekpa guilty of inciting terrorist acts and associating with a terrorist group, concluding that he had used his extensive social media following to promote violence and destabilization across the Southeast between August 2021 and November 2024. Reacting to the ruling, Mohammed Idris, Minister of Information and National Orientation, described it as, quote, a major victory in the war against terror in Nigeria, unquote. He posted on his official X, quote, we welcome the news of Simon Ekpa's conviction by a Finnish court for terrorism-related crimes and the sentencing to 6 years in prison, is a major victory for the Nigerian people in the collective fight against terror. They described Ekpa as a self-proclaimed disciple of Nnamdi Kanu, the detained leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, in bracket IPOB. Yeah, was a key figure behind the controversial sit-at-home protest in the Southeast, which have resulted in the deaths of civilians and security personnel. Following Kanu's extradition from Kenya in June 2021, Ekpa briefly served as a lead broadcaster at Radio Biafra. However, IPOB dismissed him for failing to comply with the state's code of conduct, prompting him to establish a breakaway faction. Finnish authorities arrested Ekpa in November 2024, later convicting him of spreading terrorist propaganda on social media. Unquote. In March 2025, Nigeria formally designated him as a terrorism financier. The statement from the Nigerian government reads in full: the federal government welcomes the landmark judgment of the Pajat Hame District Court in Finland, which on Monday sentenced Simon Ekpa, a self-styled pro-Biafra agitator, to 6 years imprisonment for terrorism offenses. This ruling stands as a watershed moment, not only for the countless innocent Nigerians whose lives and livelihoods have been brutally disrupted by the reign of terror incited and financed by Ekpa and his collaborators, but also for the strengthening of bilateral relations within Nigeria and Finland. For years, Ekpa's reckless incitement and orchestration of violence through IPOB terror activities unleashed unspeakable pain. Families shattered, businesses destroyed, children orphaned, and entire communities forced to live under fear. Hundreds of lives were lost and many more maimed in pursuit of a destructive and unlawful agenda that sought to undermine the peace, unity, and sovereignty of our nation. By upholding the rule of law and ensuring that justice is served, the Finnish judiciary has not only vindicated Nigeria's consistent position on this matter, but also sent a clear signal to extremists everywhere that the world is watching. Justice will catch up with those who seek to destabilize societies through terror. The Tinubu administration remains unshakable in its resolve to defend Nigeria's sovereignty and protect the dignity of every citizen. We will continue to mobilize every resource, diplomatic, military, and judicial, to preserve the peace, unity, and territorial integrity of our country. We all those who, under the misguidance of Simon Ekpa and others, have taken up arms against their fatherland, to immediately lay them down and embrace the path of peace. Nigeria is big enough for all of its people, but there can be no progress where violence and division prevail. Federal government also extends its profound gratitude to the Office of the National Security Advisor, Nigerian Armed Forces, the security and intelligence agencies, and the Federal Ministry of Justice and the Nigerian Police, whose sacrifices, courage, and commitment continue to secure our homeland in the face of daunting challenges. Their service and the resilience of the Nigerian people remain the backbone of our enduring unity. As we mark this turning point, the federal government enjoins all Nigerians at home and abroad to work together for national unity, peace, and security of the country. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the reaction of the federal government, led by the Jagaban himself here in the zoo. They have come out to vigorously and excitedly celebrate the conviction of Simon Ekpa, and they have, labeled him all kinds of names, called him all kinds of, give him all kinds of nomenclatures just for them to achieve and celebrate what they have eventually fully funded and fully motivated and fully sponsored court judgment. Yeah. So listen, Jeremy, I must confess I'm not surprised at the way and manner the zoo and its leader, the Jagaban, are celebrating, popping champagnes, because of course our dearly beloved Simon Ekpa is, is convicted for 6 months, for 6 years rather. So it's not surprising. We all expected it, because of course the federal government was very much particularly unhappy, highly distressed, by the way and manner Simon Ekpa, enunciated and fully documented the plight of the Biafrans. I mean, this was a man who came out vigorously to campaign against what he regarded as treating his own people as second-class fiddles, treating them with derision, treating them with disrespect, and preventing everything, making everything difficult for them to live and let live in the zoo. Fortunately, yes, Simon Ekpa was a very, brave man, and he spoke the way a brave man should speak. He said things in a way that someone who is aggrieved, who is unhappy with what is happening to his people, should say. And of course, this earned him total dislike and hatred from the Nigerian government. It's not surprising now that they are celebrating, and of course, they are popping champagnes all over the different ministries and parastatals of government, saying yes, patting Alexander Stubb and Finland on the back, telling them, thank you for a job well done. We expect, further things like this. Yes, I want to assure you, Nigeria and Finland will have so many things to celebrate from this judgment. Ladies and gentlemen, we're not ignorant of what happened. We know, of course, Simon Ekpa was sabotaged by his kith and kin. We know, of course, the Jagaban, who has an enormous wallet and an open check at any point in time, to compromise justice, fairness, and equity, is at the head of it all. Of course, we are very much disappointed indeed that, Alexander Stubb, who we thought was a foremost European leader, a man who should have fully articulated the rule of law, a man who should have known that, of course, the people who are not happy can never seek, happiness. I mean, they cannot. And they are from people. Simon Ekpa really did tell the Finnish people. He explained to them why he was in the struggle for the Biafran liberation. I think Alexander Stubb found a deaf ear to him, because if Simon Ekpa had explained to them Look, these people in the Southeast have been marginalized, deeply, highly, totally marginalized since the events of a coup that they were not involved in. The coup that was termed an Igbo coup in January 1966. I mean, ever since that coup, because some prominent Northern leaders were, well, deleted in the process, quiet if you like, since then, the whole country that made up the amalgamated Nigeria turned against the Biafrans, looking at them with suspicion, treating them with all manners of unfairness and indignity, treating them like a people who had no future, who had no hope, and who had no identity. In fact, this apathy, hatred, and pathological hatred for the Biafrans climaxed into a senseless, completely avoidable civil war that was termed the Biafran War, where the federal government unleashed all manners of terror, to the extent of declaring uh, complete, eradication, if you like. They wanted to completely eliminate and annihilate the Biafran people from the records of history. I mean, this were a people who fought vigorously for the independence of this country in 1990. These were people who fought ahead, made their own impact, brought in the coals from Enugu, brought in the yams, brought in the oils into the amalgamated northern and southern protectorate of Nigeria. These are people who did all they could to promote oneness of Nigeria. But unfortunately, following the after effect of that January 66 coup, these people were hated, these people were haunted, these people were completely demonized, and all manners of weapons of mass destruction were unleashed on them, making sure that they could have almost been, completely exterminated, if not gone. And of course, even when they declared the so-called war was over, they did other, post-war, carried out post-war policies that completely, dehumanized, that completely, reduced the Biafran people to a beggar status. Yes, they reduced them to a beggar status, almost like what you call the IDP today, internally displaced people. That's what the Biafrans almost became. Because, of course, despite how much you had in the bank, you were given a paltry, miserable 20 pounds to go and die and become a perpetual beggar to the other regions, the northern regions, the southwest region, the middle belt, even the south. Everybody came together to unleash the highest level of terror on the Biafran people. Peace-loving people, if you ask me. People who were highly religious, people who were Republican, people who knew they had to work to eat. They never expected anybody to feed them. Of course, every Biafran knows there's no free food in Freetown. And so they work assiduously, to make life better for themselves and their immediate families. This was what irked. This was what annoyed. This was what frustrated the northern elements because they depend entirely on the largesse of government. They depend entirely from what they can get from government. These are people who, believe they have to be spoon-fed on a daily basis, unlike the people of Biafra, who it doesn't matter what your father was. Your father could have been a cobbler. Your father could have been a farmer. Your father could have been a power tapper. It didn't stop you from aspiring to be a medical doctor, from aspiring to be a lawyer, from aspiring to be an engineer or even a pilot. This is what ate completely unsettled the northern elements who, of course, felt that they were fed blindly by the mantra that they were born to rule. So they thought, all they wanted was be within the corridors of power so that you can feed from the largesse of government. Yes, even the Southwest also have such a philosophy of life because, of course, if you watch what has happened in the Jagaban's government in recent times, every key appointment, every rich appointment, every important appointment have been taken by his kids and kin from the Southwest. Yes, You want to talk of the NMPCs. You want to talk of uh, all the higher CBNs. You want to talk about all the highest, high-paying jobs in the country have been given to kids and kings of the Jagaban. Of course, because they too, like the northern people, want to enjoy from the largesse of government. And of course, they make every effort to frustrate any attempt by the Southeast, the Biafrans, to assume such offices. In fact, where the Biafran people are qualified to even assume this, to assume high echelon of these lucrative positions, they are deliberately fired, deliberately demoted, and sometimes banana peels are thrown deliberately in their ways to frustrate them, to make caricatures of them, and to make them totally, totally despondent and poor deliberately. So, of course, these were some of the things that Simon Ekpa talked about. But of course, the Jagaban and his government have done everything possible. They have settled Finland. They have promised another stop, heaven on earth, as the Nigerian parlance always goes. Of course, they have corrupted this European country to begin to think Nigeria, to begin to act Nigeria, to begin to, promote Nigeria. It's unfortunate that our able prime minister is a victim here. Yes, Simon Ekpa is a victim. Simon Ekpa has been convicted in Finland. So the Nigerian government, of course, that happens always in any rat race, in any zoo, in a place that has been described by late prolific writer Professor Chinachebe as there was a country. In their reputation of having been a country previously, they are now agog, celebrating. Yes, yes, they're celebrating, popping champagnes, and of course, they're eulogizing Alexander Stubb's government in Finland, declaring Alexander Stubb as the best president Finland and any other European country could ever have, because he has he has promoted, he has orchestrated, he has finally given them an opportunity to ridicule, to disgrace, to convict, and to celebrate, the conviction of Simon Ekpa, unfortunately. But of course, we know it's just a matter of time. We know this celebration is very temporary, will be short-lived, because we know that we serve a living God. We know, of course, that Simon Ekpa is not guilty as charged. We know, of course, that is the gold and currency of different nations of the world that made this judgment possible. Of course, we know that the twin pillars of justice have been compromised. Yes, the blind statue, or the blindfolded statue of the pillar of justice has been compromised because, of course, Emilio is involved, because of course, dollars, pound sterling, and any kind of euro and any kind of currency has been displayed and has been, exchanged. Yes, for that conviction. So, well, we just wish them whatever they wish themselves, but we tell them, don't worry, this judgment is this celebration will be shortly, because we are going to contest this judgment. It is not Nigeria. It is not a place where you buy justice. No, Finland is not a place where you buy justice, where the highest bidder takes it all. No, these are people who, for whatever it is worth, must, they must review this judgment. They must, of course, explain why they took this judgment. The judges involved will be fully investigated. And of course, at the end of the day, we'll see who laughs last. So, ladies and gentlemen, the Nigerian government is celebrating. They are reaching up to sky heavens, shouting, yeah, yeah, and calling for the extradition of Simon Ekpa at the end of his, sentencing in Finland. It surprises me that these people are still hoping, of course, that Simon Ekpa will do a 6 years in Finland and still come to Nigeria to face charges. But let's see how it goes. It's just a matter of we are ever hopeful, very, 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 very assured that what we have between us and Nigeria, what we have between us and the world. The USB, the United States of Biafra, the redeclared United States of Biafra is an ongoing thing. What we have in USB, the United States of Biafra, is a thing of the mind, is a thing of the soul, is a thing of culture, is a people's ambition to be free. Nobody, no personality can determine the outcome of the redeclared United States of Biafra. Ojukwu didn't die with let them Ojukwu. It didn't end. It ended with Wazirike. Yes, I have problem catching that because, of course, he has let Biafra down too. Yeah, so his name has almost gone, into oblivion too. It didn't stop with Wazirike, no. It is not, never will stop with Mazen Namdekanu, no. Yes, we're happy, he's doing well, and we know 10th September is going to be out fully. It's definitely not going to end with Simon Ekpa in Joko. No way. It won't end with him. It has to continue. It's ongoing now with Dr. Stella Ngozi Oraboeze. Yes, Dr. Oraboeze is doing great, and we stand by her and we support her in the way and manner she's navigating the redeclared sovereign United States of Biafra. She's doing everything possible, doing everything right, and making sure she articulates the hopes, the aspirations, and the value. Yeah, the mission. If